Hello everybody, my name is Ord and welcome back to Ord Narrations. Today we're reading a story about a woman who snooped and found something weird on her partner's phone. Let's get into it. For context, my boyfriend and I have been together for 5 years. We're in our mid-30s. A few years back he lived abroad and he dated for a few months a girl that he didn't find very attractive and ended things with her with no regret, apparently. She started to work out in the last years and got really hot and fit. This is what he told me. Well, I checked her social media and can confirm this all. She lives abroad and they haven't met in years, but they're still in contact on social media. A couple of years ago, we went through some really bad times, and we almost broke up. He was constantly messaging her, and I think he told her about our problems. She invited him to visit her country. We eventually managed to fix our relationship. He obviously didn't go, and now it's all good. He told me all this. A few days ago, he went to shower and left his laptop open. I really didn't want to check, and I know it's bad, but I was curious. I wasn't really expecting anything at all. On a messaging app, I found an archived conversation with her from a couple days earlier, with some voice messages. I couldn't listen to them. A long call they had, and the last two messages were where she thanked him for what he told her. I don't know what he told her. I just know that it was her birthday, so probably the conversation started with him saying happy birthday, but somehow they ended up talking about something serious and deep. I know he, quote unquote, let her go, not in the best way possible in the past, and he mentioned a few times he kind of wanted to apologize to her someday, but I'm not sure if that's what he actually did, and why would they talk for so long while I'm not around? He didn't mention the call, and I get why. I wouldn't have liked it, but the doubt is eating me alive. But I cannot confront him about this, ever. I really want to think that he apologized for the past and that's it, but part of me thinks he might have said he shouldn't have let her go. Should I just try and ignore this and move on? TLDR, boyfriend messaged and talked to an ex behind my back, and I think he might have told her he wished he hadn't let her go. Tricky situation there. It's a little strange to me that he's talking to an ex consistently, especially relying on her when your relationship was bad. In those kinds of situations, guys, from my experience, typically will rely more on their mates. Going to an ex just screams red flags to me. Yeah, it feels like common sense, but I know if one of my partners, 5 years into a relationship, just started chatting again with their ex because they got fit or something, yeah, no, well, they wouldn't be my partner for very long. I know personally I wouldn't have been able to stop myself listening to it, even if it hurt. You know, it's a bit like a plaster. I would have preferred to just rip it off and get it dealt with than suffer in silence, if that makes sense. Unfortunately, I think when those seeds of doubt have been placed, or planted, I guess, they don't really die. They just stay there and slowly take over your mind until every time he checks his phone, you're going to be thinking, oh, she sent him a message. Tricky situation. Let's see what the community thinks. Someone's commented, I'm confused. You've been dating for 5 years, but he had a short-term girlfriend a few years ago. So he cheated with her? And then a couple of years ago, he was still messaging her? What happened that was making your relationship quote-unquote bad? He also felt the need to tell you she got hot? This is all extremely odd. I completely agree with the last statement. I think maybe OP used a few years ago to mean several years ago. That might have been a better word choice. Obviously, if you're upset and you're worried about something, word choice isn't the easiest skill. The messaging throughout the relationship just irks me. I'm not entirely sure. It's just not a good sign. Someone else has commented saying, he's spending a lot of energy on someone he broke up with years ago with no regrets, quote unquote. This relationship isn't fixed if you're snooping through his messages to find out what's going on with him. I agree with that, but I do think in a relationship, I guess that boundary needs to be established. Do you both agree to not look through each other's stuff? Or is there a certain point where it becomes okay because, you know, if you're being committed, like what do you have to hide? I think it depends on the couple. Someone else has commented, honestly, I think you're deluding yourself. If everything was all good as you claim, then you wouldn't have felt the need to go through his messages years later. So clearly something was telling you things weren't right. I also think you're deluding yourself that he just wanted to apologize for the past. You were going through problems, he reaches out to her complaining about your issues, and she invited him to come see her? Yeah, it's glaringly obvious what she was trying to pull, OP. I also think it was pretty convenient he didn't mention the long conversation. You can ignore it and move on all you want, but it will eat at you, and it should. I think your boyfriend is shady, if I'm being honest. I agree with the deluding yourself about the apologize for the past. I think your gut feeling on that is probably on point. There may be more to it. If it were me, I would listen to those voice notes. It may be absolutely gut-wrenching, but it's probably for the best. At least then, I mean, best case scenario, it is just about the apology, and, fantastic, all good. And if worst case scenario, it's something abhorrent that you don't want to hear, fantastic. You can move on with your life and stop wasting your time. It's a bit of a catch-22, but it's like a win in either case. Someone else commented, this is a lot of contact with someone he didn't find attractive and broke things off with years ago. I get having friends and whatever, but they are literally in different countries. I would bring it up with him and see what he says, i.e., leaving it open for him to bring it up, like asking if he has spoken to her recently, etc. And if he straight up lies, something more is probably going on. That is a very clever strategy, to be fair. It's a very clever strategy, especially if you phrase it in the right way, and just drop something like, oh, has whatever messaged you recently? Like, how's she doing? Something like that, and just see what he says. Obviously, you already know that he's been talking to her somewhat, so see what he tells you. Very clever. Someone else commented saying, the fact that it's archived means he intentionally hid it from you. No one really archives combos, especially if they took place a couple days earlier. I'm going to advocate to be a bad influence and snoop further. I rate that. Just for the sake of closure for yourself. If you're prepared for a potentially negative outcome, because honestly, at that point, I wouldn't expect him to be honest with you completely. I think that's a very fair point. It makes a good point about the archived conversations. That's one way of really, really easily hiding conversations and avoiding notifications. So there's clearly something sneaky going on. Someone else commented saying, he's still in touch with an ex behind your back. Toss this one back into the sea. He's not a keeper. Agreed. Someone else commented saying, actually, I think you should confront him about it. It's not like you were actually snooping. He left his laptop open in plain view and you happened to stumble across it. His relationship with this person ended over 5 years ago. There's no earthly reason why he should still be talking with her. This is something that you should get to the bottom of. If the two of you plan on continuing your relationship, then you should ask him to have no further contact with her and to delete her from his social media accounts. I think that would be fair as a compromise. If this interaction is making you uncomfortable and he's, set on the relationship, then this shouldn't be a bad thing. I wouldn't describe it as controlling. If you ask him, I'm not comfortable with this, would you be okay with just removing her, not blocking her or anything? Someone else commented saying, he shouldn't be talking to his ex as constantly as he is, as that is not respectful to his current relationship. He should cease the communication, especially if it's bothering you. How would he feel if you were still texting an ex of yours? Him texting an ex behind your back shows something isn't right with that situation, to where he feels he needs to do it secretly. Have a talk with him and explain that it's making you uncomfortable. He's talking to his ex so often, if he gets defensive over that, there's probably something going on that needs to be addressed. I completely agree with that take. It's a tricky situation. It's hard to know whether there is something genuinely going on or if he's just pushing his luck. So, what would you suggest OP should do? What would you do if you were in OP's shoes? Let me know in the comments. I should probably leave that there. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.